Hello everyone and welcome. This video is going to be a full spoiler vlog of the Letters of Enchantment duology and the prequel Wild Reverence. So if you don't want any spoilers for Wild Reverence, Divine Rivals, or Ruthless Vows, then click off of this video. So unfortunately I already finished Wild Reverence without doing a spoiler vlog. I hadn't decided I was going to do it yet when I read this. But I did include it in a non-spoiler vlog if you want to watch that. But I'm still going to be talking about this and its connections to the duology that I'm rereading. I've already read it, but reading this made me want to go ahead and reread the duology because I feel like I already made some connections between these books and I'm wanting to see what else I may have missed, and I'm just missing this world. So I definitely will still be talking about this book. And I've started Divine Rivals. I'm not very far in, but I'm just so happy to be back in this world and I'm loving seeing the characters again. And I was just pulled right back into the story immediately. And it's just funny to see where Iris and Roman start off, knowing where they're going to end up. And I've definitely been doing a lot more highlighting this time than I did the first time, now that I know what's going to happen. And it's interesting to see where like Enva and Dacker have ended up all these years later. It's also interesting to know how the typewriters have gotten the way that they are, now that we know that Matilda is the one that enchanted them. But it also made me wonder, they say all the gods except for 5 of them have been slain. And so now I'm wondering, like, what happened to Bade and Adria? Because I'm pretty sure Matilda's safe. I know they say that she's like been forgotten and she's in the mists with Vincent. But like, what of Bade and Adria? I mean, they've probably been slayed, but I hope not. But I'm going to keep reading and I will be back with an update. So I haven't read a whole lot more, but I have started to remember what actually happens in this series and I'm starting to kind of make connections. I don't remember everything, but I wanted to talk about it before I got to those parts, just to kind of look back on this when I have more information and see if this was like totally off base or not. But I'm remembering that Iris ends up having some really strange dreams after her mother dies. And then I believe she finds out it was Enva. So now I'm wondering where Enva got these dream powers. Did she borrow them from Matilda? We know she's borrowed power from Matilda before. Did she take it from Matilda? I really hope not. Did she take it from Alva? Because we know that Alva has been slain. They mentioned that Alva is in a grave, but also Dacker and Enva were in graves, so maybe Alva's, I don't know. I think Alva, Luz, Dacker, and Enva are all sleeping in graves. I remember this has something to do with Enva and her harp. So I don't know, I'm really curious about that. And I also just find it really interesting how kind of similar Matilda and Iris's stories are. I don't know that there's any real connection there. I just find it interesting. Like, we have both of them, their mothers are tragically taken from them and then their lives are like sent into upheaval. Matilda goes up into the skyward realm and Iris takes off to be a journalist on the front lines, and they both just kind of feel like they are not as important or not as powerful as a lot of other people, and then that ends up not being the case. So I just kind of love the similarities between them regardless of if they're relevant. But I can't help but wonder, at the very end of Wild Reverence, Matilda does touch the I and the R keys on the typewriter, which I just assumed was, you know, just a little nod to Roman and Iris, and it probably is, but now I can't help wondering if she knew something. Anyway, I just wanted to rant about that for a little bit, but I'm going to keep reading and I will be back when I have another update. So I've read a little bit more and I just wanted to share a few thoughts and just kind of go over a brief summary of what I've read so far. So to start off, we saw Iris say goodbye to her brother Forrest when he leaves for the war to fight for Enva. We see how much she really struggles with that and does not want him to leave. Her mother also really struggles with that. And then fast forward, we see her working at her job at the Oath Gazette, where she is working alongside Roman, who is her rival. They are both competing for the position of columnist, and they're competing constantly to get better articles. And this is a struggle for Iris because she is struggling. She doesn't have a lot of money. Her mother quit her job and is struggling with addiction, and everything is kind of on Iris to provide. So we see her having to walk to work. She's late, and so she doesn't get these articles that she needs. And it seems like Roman kind of looks down on her for it. He comes from a wealthy family. His father puts a lot of pressure on him, and Iris and Roman, they just really don't get along. Roman ends up having a marriage arranged for him to a girl he doesn't even know, doesn't want to marry. There's clearly something going on there, which, I mean, I know what it is, but we haven't got there yet. So he's not happy about this. He takes off upstairs and starts writing to Iris, because we've seen them now exchanging their letters, but she does not know it's him. He has told her now that it's not Forrest, but she doesn't know who it is. But he does know that it's her. And then the last thing I remember reading is Iris asked her mom to help her curl her hair because her and Roman got into a huge fight. He called her sloppy, I think it was. He was just kind of being mean. And so she's trying to make herself feel better before she goes into work the next day. And her mom was kind of in a good state suddenly when she came home. I mean, if you've read this book, you know what's coming, and I'm not happy about it. But that's where I left off. And a couple thoughts. We have now seen Prindle. We've been introduced to her. We're seeing her a bit more. And it makes me really sad because I really like her and I know what's going to happen to her. And it really makes me sad. I also had completely forgotten about Roman's little sister. And that's kind of where his guilt comes from and why he kind of goes along with his father for as long as he does. Because he feels like he owes his father as the only heir. I don't remember exactly what happened to her. We haven't gotten there yet. He's just mentioned her. But I do remember he was supposed to be watching her and she wandered off and something happened. But I had completely forgotten about that. It's just so strange to see where these two started off knowing where they end up. It's just, I don't ever remember him being quite this rude to her. You can already tell that it bothers him to be rude to her. It's all kind of coming from his father's thoughts, I guess. But I'm really loving reading this book again and I'm really excited to continue. So I'm going to keep reading and I'll be back when I have an update. So I have some time to just sit and read for a bit, so I'm going to do that. But I was actually wrong the last clip. I said the last thing I read was Iris and her mom, and I was wrong. I guess that happens before Roman gets engaged. And so the last thing I read was his engagement, his arranged marriage, and then him sending the story of Dacker and Enva that he found part of in one of his grandfather's books. But now I am on chapter 8, A Sandwich with an Old Soul, so I'm going to read that, and I'm just going to sit and read for a little bit. So the first sentence of the next chapter is, her mother was gone that evening. Oh no, I already know what's coming, but it still makes me so sad for her. She finally felt like she was getting her mom back and then she lost her. I've always loved this moment in the book. This is a letter that Roman wrote to Iris. She doesn't know that yet, but it says, do you ever feel as if you were armored day after day? When people look at you, they see only the shine of steel that you've so carefully encased yourself in. They see what they want to see in you, the warped reflection of their own face, or a piece of the sky, or a shadow cast between buildings. They see all the times you've made mistakes, all the times you've failed, all the times you've hurt them or disappointed them, as if that is all you will ever be in their eyes. How do you change something like that? How do you make your life your own and not feel guilt over it? And then she writes back a long message, but my favorite pieces of it are, I think we all wear armor. I think those who don't are fools, risking the pain of being wounded by the sharp edges of the world over and over again. But if I've learned anything from those fools, it's that to be vulnerable is a strength most of us fear. It takes courage to let down your armor, to welcome people to see you as you are. Sometimes I feel the same as you. I can't risk having people behold me as I truly am, but there's also a small voice in the back of my mind. A voice that tells me you will miss so much by being so guarded. Perhaps it begins with one person, someone you trust. You remove a piece of armor for them, you let the light stream in, even if it makes you wince. Perhaps that is how you learn to be soft yet strong, even in fear and uncertainty. One person, one piece of steel. And then at the end of her letter, she says, all right, now I've let the words spill out. I've given you a piece of armor, I suppose, but I don't think you'll mind. I just think that's such a sweet moment between them. I love this part. All right, I'm going to stop for a little bit now. I'm on chapter 10, station 9, 20% of the way in. I'm going to take a break, but I'm pretty sure I'm just getting to the part where they're going to find her mom, which is such a sad part. But yeah, I'm going to take a break for now, but I'll be back when I have more updates. All right, I've read a bit more. I have some things to add. So I've now gotten past the part where she finds out about her mom, and I forgot how much that really affected her. How much she really missed the way life used to be with her mom and Forrest, and how this is really what threw her into going to join at the front lines. And then when she writes the letter to unknowingly to Roman about her mother, and he writes back about what happened to his sister. He mentions a goddess who visited him in his dreams, offering to remove the memory of his sister, and I'm wondering who that was. Was it just a dream? Knowing the series, I feel like it's not. I know that it was Enva that visited Iris, so I'm wondering if it's her, or could it be Matilda? Once again, I'm wondering where Enva got these dream-walking powers from, and who would have the power to remove that memory. So that's something that I'm trying to keep an eye out for. I don't remember if it's ever said or not. And I'm someone who never rereads, and I think I'm gonna have to start doing it more often, because everything just feels much more meaningful now. I've highlighted a million more things than I did the first time, and just kind of knowing where we're going, everything just feels like it means a lot more than it did the first time. And it was always there, but I just somehow missed it. Roman's father has just told him about the bombs, and knowing what happens, that just like was so hard to read. And his father's talking about how Dacker is going to be so generous towards their family, and this is going to save their family, and then knowing what happens, it's just, yeah, it's sad. Something else I noticed that I don't remember from the first time that I thought was really sweet is when his father brings up Iris and how he doesn't want Roman with Iris. Roman decides to hide her letters because he doesn't want his father finding out anything about her that he doesn't already know. And he decides to stash them in this little spot where he used to hide all of his childhood treasures. And I don't know, I thought that was so cute. But now I'm at the point where Iris has decided to join the ink-ridden Tribune and to go to the war front to be a correspondent. And we have met Addie and Marisol, and I forgot how much I love them. I forgot how much I love the found family in this. But I am definitely having a great time with this reread, so I'm gonna continue, and I will be back when I have another update. I've just gotten to part 3, and a recap. We saw the myth being told of Dacker and Enva, and we talked about the first time Enva sang everyone to sleep, which we saw in Wild Reverence. And I definitely feel like what was said in Wild Reverence about once the gods are slain, they're just forgotten, is true, because there's only a handful of them that are ever actually mentioned in this series. And then we see how after Wild Reverence, apparently Enva decided to just play a little bit longer a couple of times to see if it would make them sleep longer, and it did. And then apparently we find out that the whole time Enva was actually awake. The mortals pretended to bury her, but in exchange, what she actually did was she was the one that sang all of the remaining gods and goddesses to sleep, and the mortals just took credit for it. So I guess the other 4 weren't dead, they were just sleeping, and that's how Dacker came back. And I'm assuming the other ones must be somewhere, the other 3. I also just saw the scene where we encountered Dacker's hounds for the first time. I forgot how haunting that is when they just come through and we hear about how Iris and Addie and Marisol are all hiding out, and these hounds are rattling at the doors, they're howling. It's just a really good, tense moment. I'm also liking now seeing the mortal perspective of Dacker again after having just seen the gods' perspective of this war. We hear about what he's doing with the Ethereals and the hounds in Wild Reverence, and now we're actually seeing him do it. Because what he's doing is, originally in Wild Reverence, how he got Enva to go with him was he used his Ethereals and his hounds to terrorize the mortals. So now that she sang them to sleep and escaped, when he woke up, he decided he was going to do that all over again to try to lure her back. And so that's what this war is about. And also probably to kind of get some revenge on her, I suppose. But this book really does get into grief and war and the effects of it. We see Iris really struggling a lot more than I ever remember her struggling. And she talks about how it's always in like these quiet moments where she ends up thinking of her mother. We just see all the little moments that remind her of Forrest and her mom. And we also saw the effects of war. We saw a truckload of injured soldiers be brought into town, and we saw her helping out with that. She's writing letters for them to send to their families. And then we're headed to the front lines, where I do remember we definitely see more of the war there. And she's seeing the way that this town is living because it's so close to the front lines, and how everything is just kind of boarded up. Everyone's on alert all the time, and that's what we see her writing about for her articles. And then fast forward a little bit, Roman has shown up at Avalon Bluff to also be a war correspondent, and Iris still doesn't know that it's him she's writing to, so she is now writing unknowingly to Roman about how annoyed she is that Roman has just shown up at Avalon Bluff, and that just made me laugh. And then him responding as if he thinks her rival is such a fool. I just thought it was kind of a funny, sweet moment. And now I'm at the point where Iris and Roman are about to travel to the front lines, and I definitely remember there is some crazy things that happen while they're there, so I'm excited to keep reading, and I will be back when I have another update. have about 70 pages left, but I wanted to do another update. So we've now seen them go to the front lines. We saw the attack by Dacker and his forces, and then we saw Roman get injured trying to save Iris and him. And it is still so sad to see the part where he just like almost gives up, tells her to take his bag and leave because he has all of her letters in there that he wants her to see so she knows who she's been writing to. So once she gets him kind of to safety and he is ready to be put into a truck and taken out, she's helping to move people towards safety that are injured. And so she's on the last truck out of there, and she ends up being on a truck with Lieutenant Lark that we met earlier, who was leading the platoon that she was following. And we find out that the entire Sycamore platoon is gone except for Lieutenant Lark. That just really broke my heart. He tells the whole story about how the platoon came to be and how he is so heartbroken that he's going to have to inform all of their families about how they had all carved their initials in a sycamore tree that was super important to their town. And then Lieutenant Lark does end up passing with Iris there with him holding his hand. It was it's really sad. Even though we don't see a lot of him, it was really hard. She gets back to the house and she finishes the last letter that Carver had sent her that Roman kept interrupting her reading. And she gets to the part where he's talking about sublime, divine, transcendent. And he had been asking her and Addie for synonyms to transcendent. And those were the words that they gave, and now she's seeing them in the letter, so she has figured out who Carver is. She remembers Roman being super protective of his bag and really wanting to make sure that she took the bag out of there. So she decides to open it up and see what's in there and finds all of the letters. And she's understandably feeling a little bit lied to, a little bit, I don't know if portrayed is the right word, but she feels kind of like maybe this has all been a game. I mean, clearly he cares. He just saved her life, but I understand why she feels conflicted. So she takes the letters to him at the infirmary, confronts him, and he obviously tells her that that's not the case, that he is not playing any games. He just really enjoyed writing to her in her letters and developed feelings for her. And we also hear him talk about how those initial letters that were actually written to Forrest meant so much to him because he lost his sister. It was a younger sister writing to her older brother. So it makes sense that he wanted to hold on to those and that those meant so much to him. I didn't really get that before, but I see it now. We also start to see so many ways that the two of them are alike, even though they are so different. They both just really want to be seen. They both feel like they're not being seen anymore. They don't feel like they're really known by anyone. It also seems to me like they really both feel like they don't have any control in their lives. Roman has just said that. He said his father has been controlling his life for as long as he can remember. It seems to me like Iris maybe feels the same way because she's constantly losing people. Her life is kind of all over the place. Like she probably is really also just looking for some stability and control of her life. So I feel like they are actually a lot more alike than they seem. So we've now seen the proposal. So we know from later in the book that Forrest was watching them during the proposal in the garden. But I don't remember her feeling watched and them kind of feeling like there was someone there, but they did, and so now we know that that's Forrest. I also think it's really interesting to see how war and grief has really changed Iris. Like she's just all of a sudden much more spontaneous and open. There's a quote that really shows that. It says, "Once, not long ago, in her life before the front lines, she would have thought this was ridiculous. She would have said, 'No, I have other plans right now.' But that was before, a time that was gilded by a different slant of light, and this present moment was now limned in the blue tinge of after. She had seen the fragility of life, how one could wake to a sunrise and die by sunset. She had run through the smoke and the fire and the agony with Roman, his hand in hers. They had both tasted death, brushed shoulders with it. They had scars on their skin and on their souls from that fractured moment. And now Iris saw more than she had before. She saw the light, but she also saw the shadows." We really do see these characters change and grow a lot throughout this series. And then the last thing that happened was the siren going off, the evacuation siren. And she's trying to decide whether to stay or to flee with Roman because he's still injured. But she now knows that the platoon that Forrest is in is kind of close, so she's hoping they're going to be coming by to help. So she doesn't want to leave, which I understand, but it's really unfortunate that they didn't leave. They come back from the infirmary, they realize there's been someone in the house. I know from having already read this book that it was Forrest, but they don't know that. And that's where I left off. I'm about to read the wedding. So I'm going to continue, and I will be back when I have something else to say, probably after I finish this one. So now I'm really sad. I know it's going to be okay, Kind of. I mean, he never really fully recovers, but I'm still really sad. I finished Divine Rivals. I just want to go over some more things that I've read. So we saw their wedding. It was beautiful, wonderful, of course. And then tragedy strikes, and Dacre's Ethereals show up and start dropping the poison on everyone. Iris is grabbed by a man in Roman's uniform who she assumes is him. He has a gas mask on. He's pulling her away. She doesn't realize it's not him, it's actually Forrest, because he broke into the house and took Roman's uniforms. He took two of the dash packs, and she doesn't realize until they're already out of the town in a field that it's not him. And once she realizes, she turns around and she sees Roman has been chasing them this entire time, but he's in a really poor condition. He's not really able to keep up. He's not able to really yell after them. And Forrest fights her and ends up taking her away and leaving Roman behind, which obviously doesn't sit well with Iris. Later that night, they go back to look for Roman in the field where they saw him collapse. He's gone. And then we see in the epilogue that Dacre takes him to the Underrealm to heal him to use for his army. The thing is, I feel the same way at the end that I felt the first time I read it. I just don't know how to feel about Forrest. And I completely understand that he wanted to get Iris away, but why run away from Roman? I know he says that like he was under Dacre's control, it took everything in him to fight it off and help her, but Roman was right there. Why is it so difficult to also just wait for him? If he can run all the way to Oath with Iris, I don't get that. My only other thought is that makes me feel a little bit better about it is maybe Roman wouldn't have survived if they had taken him, because Dacre is the one that heals him and really brings him back to life. But the last thing Iris sees of him is that he is overtaken by the gas that is blowing towards them. So obviously that made him worse. So I feel like if they had helped him, maybe he would have been okay. If Forrest had just helped her grab him rather than fighting her. So that's always kind of bugged me. I don't know how to feel about him. By the end of the second book, the first time I read it, I did like him more, but honestly it was mostly because of Prindle. So we'll see how my feelings go this time. Iris and Forrest get back to their apartment in Oath. And then one of the saddest moments in the story for me is she goes into her room and remembers that she left Carver's final letter on her floor when she left, because she just had a feeling it was gonna stop her from going. And obviously now she knows who Carver is, so she goes and reads the letter, and it just says, Iris, Iris, it's me, Kit. And that is so sad to me. But she just had to leave him behind. She doesn't know if he's dead or alive, and then there's this letter yelling for her, basically, to wait for him. I didn't think it would make me this sad the second time. I know what's gonna happen, but it still made me sad. As far as final thoughts go, I mean, I don't really have much to say. This is the whole reason why I reread this, is it's a favorite of mine. It's now been cemented as a favorite. I definitely enjoyed it even more the second time, but 5 stars. I love the writing, I love the characters, I love the found family, the plot. There's really nothing I don't like about this book. I want to start Ruthless Vows right away, but I can't. I have some other things I need to read first, but I will be back when I have started Ruthless Vows. Alright, I'm back. I've started Ruthless Vows. I'm about 25% of the way in. And so far, we've seen Iris back in Oath with Forrest, back working for the Tribune. And we now know Roman has been healed by Dacre and is being used to write headlines in Dacre's favor. There were a few moments I wanted to talk about, like when Iris tried to use the normal typewriter to write him a letter and tried to send it and it didn't work. That really broke my heart. And Roman's articles for Dacre is really just Dacre twisting the headlines to kind of fit his version of events, because he's having Roman tell everyone, oh, Dacre is healing soldiers, but who was the one that hurt them in the first place? They leave that out very conveniently. And this is where we really start to see what Dacre's up to and kind of what his plans are. And I know a lot of people hate the amnesia trope, but honestly, usually I don't love it either. But for me in this, it worked, because I feel like it was a good way for us to be able to see Dacre's POV, kind of, and to see the Underrealm and see what Dacre was actually doing. And I also feel like it made sense. The amnesia made sense because Dacre would want to wipe everyone's memories, because he wants Roman to put out these headlines saying that Dacre healed him without remembering that Dacre hurt him, because otherwise, obviously, he would be trying to flee. He wouldn't want to write these articles. So I feel like it makes sense in this book. Moving on, I was really glad that Iris got all of their letters back. After she stole the typewriter from the museum, she got all of the letters back that she thought she had lost back at Avalon Bluff, because they hadn't yet been received by this third magical typewriter that she went into the museum and stole. I forgot how Iris is. Like, she is not going to give up. She will not give up on this until she knows it is over. And I really love her. We've now met Tobias, who drives Iris and Addie back to the front after they're ordered to go back and write more articles. And I really like him. We've also met Lucy, who is Marisol's sister. They're not like blood sisters, but chosen sisters. I don't know, a lot of people don't like this book, and I do understand it. People don't like that they're separated for a lot of it, which, I mean, I love them together. I would love for them to be together. But I do like seeing them find their way back to each other, and I do like being able to see what Dacre's got going on. I feel like it helped add to the world building to kind of have them separated and have Roman stuck with Dacre. But that's it for now. I will be back when I have another update. Alright, I'm about 50% of the way through, and now that Iris has the typewriter again, they've started writing each other again, but he doesn't remember anything, so he doesn't know who he's writing. And they are unknowingly moving closer to each other. She is being sent back to the front, and he is moving with Dacre towards Oath. We find out about the tunnels that Dacre is clearing out underground to invade towns from the inside, using his doors with his keys. Speaking of, they mention this magic of 5 keys, 5 gods that are still alive, so I'm going to be trying to keep an eye out for anything else that fits this magic of 5s, because I feel like that must be important. We also know now that Shane doesn't have amnesia. Not everyone gets amnesia, and Shane mentions that he's from Oath. It kind of seems like maybe he knew Roman or knows of him. Then Tobias, Addie, and Iris help move the wounded out of town after Roman writes Iris that Dacre intends to invade the area where Keegan is. They go to Keegan, warn her, and then evacuate everyone. But while they're leaving town, Tobias hits a pothole, a tire pops, and Iris volunteers to go back to town to a garage that they passed and look for a tire iron because he can't find his. And while she's there, Dacre and his army invade through these tunnels. She's hiding in the closet, and Roman finds her, and he does recognize her because he's been having dreams about Iris Winnow, but he doesn't know who she really is. He just remembers her as his work rival. But regardless, he helps sneak her out through the window, and then once she tells him who she is and that they are married, he remembers everything. She runs off. They see her, the soldiers, they're chasing her, but she gets away. She gets in the car, and then they send the hounds after her. And I forgot how much I really like that part. Like, that part is so haunting to me. These hounds chasing them with these glowing hearts. Everything about that scene, I really enjoy that. I also want to mention how much I love Addie and Tobias. I had forgotten how much I like them. I wish we could have seen more of them. But Iris gets away. Dacre now suspects that there is someone who is giving information from the inside, because how else did these people know to evacuate? And so he is on to the fact that someone is leaking information, and he knows that Roman has been remembering things, so I'm sure he probably suspects him. And Roman's injuries have started to come back. His lungs have started hurting. His knee has started hurting. I hate that. I hate how this ends, and it's just kind of like he just has to live with it, but he does finally remember everything. He couldn't go with Iris, it seemed like, because Dacre's magic was holding him there. So for now, they are separated again. Iris is headed off with Addie and Tobias, and Roman is stuck with Dacre. Oh, and Iris left her wedding band with Roman to kind of remember her by. I thought that was really sweet because she had her mother's locket, and then Forrest had her mother's locket, and I don't know, I thought that was cute. It's like something that even if Dacre were to take his memory again, he has something of Iris still. I don't remember much of Shane, so I am curious to see what ends up coming from that. But I'm going to keep reading, and I will be back with an update. I'm back. I'm about 75% of the way through, and I actually managed to get a physical copy from the library, which I never do, and then of course forgot to hold it up the entire time I've been filming this. But anyway, some updates. Roman gets summoned to Dacre, where he finds out that I think Shane was kind of trying to set him up, because he walks in and Dacre is asleep. Dacre clearly didn't actually summon him, and he's dreaming of Enva. So now I'm curious, did Enva visit him in his dreams, or was he just dreaming of her? Roman also finds out that Dacre heals people just enough to keep them around and kind of tied to him because they don't want to leave, because he keeps healing their injuries, and he wipes their memory so they don't know that he's the one that caused them, obviously. So that's how he's basically built the majority of his army, as he goes through, injures people, heals them, and then they're tied to him. Because even once Roman figures out what's going on, he is still under Dacre's power and isn't really able to leave. And Forrest said the same thing about when it was him. So we've now figured out that Roman still has these injuries, and he mentions he doesn't know how long he has to live, and that made me sad because that was my thought at the end of this book. The first time I read it was, he's still not well. He still has a lot of issues with his lungs. Even with the medicine he's on, it made me sad. Like, how long does he have? And then Dacre takes Roman to Luz's grave, who is another one of the gods who was supposed to be sleeping. He went there to murder Luz in his sleep, hoping to steal his powers, which are rain and harvest. But Luz is already dead. And so we're assuming that Enva killed him and probably the other two divines that were supposed to be sleeping as well. Otherwise, they would also be awake by now. We also find out why Shane doesn't have amnesia. It's because he voluntarily enlisted to fight for Dacre, and now seems like he's kind of trying to fight back against Dacre. I don't really understand what his prerogative is. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he just wants to be on whatever side is winning. I'm not sure. We also find out that the gods were meant to sleep because the human king wanted it that way. Because if they had killed the gods instead, the magic would just disappear from the land. But when they're sleeping underground, it keeps the magic alive in the realm, and he didn't want the magic to just disappear. So that's why the king had Enva sing the gods to sleep. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Marisol gave Iris a bird identification book, and these birds have kind of been coming up a lot as symbolism, and I found it interesting. We've talked about a lot about nightingales, the albatross. They talk about the albatross flying in its sleep and flying directly into storms. It just instinctually kind of knows that that's what's going to be best for it, and it just flies right into the storm. And they talk about the nightingale kind of being unassuming and how it actually is able to sing all of these different songs. I thought that was a fun little touch to kind of tie all of that in together. We've also now found out that Prindle and Forrest are kind of together, and that makes me so sad because I know you're kind of seeing Forrest heal and go back to being himself again. Iris kind of is starting to feel like she's really getting her brother back. Prindle seems happy, and then I know what's going to happen, and it just breaks my heart to know that Iris is finally going to get her brother back, and then she's going to lose that last little bit of her family. Another thing we find out is that when they're back in Oath, they find out there is this graveyard, which is a group of unknown individuals who are basically against all the gods. They want all of them gone, and they've basically taken over Oath. They have a curfew set, they're controlling what's written in the paper, they're controlling who's allowed an oath. They're basically hunting Enva, and I suppose Dacre, but they suspect Enva is still in Oath. And so this graveyard has just kind of taken over. You can really just feel the tension building. The violence is starting to kind of creep up. Everyone is tired of this war between the gods. It seems like you can definitely tell things are starting to get to a boiling point. Another thing I found interesting is that Roman, when he's brought to Oath, because his house is on a ley line, one of these magical doors is in the Kit Manor, and he's taken home, and on his way there, they ride an ethereal, and the ethereals are actually controlled by music. I thought that was interesting, considering Enva controls everything by music, and these are Dacre's ethereals. But it also makes you really realize that these ethereals, and I'm sure the hounds as well, are all actually just captive of Dacre, same as Roman and most of the other soldiers. They're all under his control. You see the ethereal kind of try to fight this music, fight the control. It's not able to. So basically, everything going on is being completely controlled by Dacre on his side of the war. And Enva does compel people with her music to understand her side and see what Dacre's really doing, but she's not controlling them. Once they get to the front lines, that is their choice. They want to be there. And then we learn that Addie has been dreaming of this same song that Iris has been dreaming of, and we find out that it's the same song that was used to sing the gods to sleep. That's kind of our first hint, I guess, that it's Enva in their dreams, kind of trying to let them know what needs to be done. Addie has a hidden violin that she could play this song on. And the last thing that I read was Shane found all of Roman's letters from Iris. Shane went with them to the Kid estate and snuck up to Roman's room, found all of these letters and knows that he is the one that has been leaking information. So that's obviously not good. So basically, they're all back in Oath, trying to figure out where these ley lines are, where these doors are, and what they can do to stop it. But I'm gonna keep reading, and I will be back when I have an update. All right, I'm almost finished. I have like 25 pages left, but I wanted to go over some things and then finish this up. So we find out that Lieutenant Shane is actually a part of the graveyard and is in on a plan to assassinate Dacker using a bomb. As blackmail for finding Roman's letters, he gives Roman a letter to deliver to a man that's going to be at this conference where this assassination is meant to happen. This man is meant to be wearing a red anemone on his jacket, which we know to be a symbol from the graveyard. So that's how I know he's a part of the graveyard. It hasn't been explicitly said yet, but Roman sees Iris is also at this conference. She was invited by the Chancellor, and he gets distracted. He doesn't actually know what he's delivering. He doesn't know how important it is, and he misses his opportunity. He reads the letter, realizes what it is, what's going to happen, because the letter was telling this man not to go through with it because the bomb wouldn't kill Dacker. And so obviously the bomb goes off. And then we find out that Bruce, Roman's father's associate, as well as Roman's father, are both also involved with the graveyard, because Bruce is the man that Roman was supposed to deliver this letter to. Bruce pulls him away from the bomb, so Roman is able to survive. And then obviously Iris was also at this conference, but someone had just kind of stepped in front of her just in time, and unfortunately for them, they didn't make it, but she was able to survive the blast. She wakes up, Dacker sees her, she flees from him and hides in the museum. She is found by the night guard, who she later finds out is Enva. And Enva visits Iris in her dreams while Iris is sleeping in the museum. And she shows Iris how to find the heart of the Underrealm, where she will need to go to play out this plan to play Dacker to sleep and then behead him. We also learn that when Enva stole the other god's powers, it weakened hers, and now she can't play the harp without extreme pain. And we also now know where she got dreamwalking from. She got it from Alva. And then when Iris wakes up in the museum, Enva is gone, but she has left behind an enchanted sword. And this sword can cut through anything as if it's butter if the wielder first cuts themselves with it and gives it their blood to weaken themselves. And then Dacker summons Iris to the Kid Estate, where he confronts her about the letter that he sent her asking her to write for him. She says that she won't, obviously, but he basically forces her to, and forces her to write an important message that she is supposed to put in the headlines for the Tribune the next morning. And this message is that he's going to be bombing the entire southern portion of Oath, and anyone who wants to survive has to head up to the northern part of Oath and join him. So Iris delivers this message, but she also sneaks another message into the Oath Gazette. And this message is about the ley lines and how any building that has magic should be safe to shelter in the southern portion of Oath. And then Shane betrays Roman and gives Dacker Roman's letters, because Shane stole a key to the Underrealm, and Dacker suspects Roman, so Shane just blames him to save himself, basically. Then Roman is sent to the Underrealm to be shackled in that area with all of the sulfur pools, where he's basically just left to die. And then we see Enva in Iris's dreams again while she is home with Forrest. We find out that Enva has been visiting many people's dreams, including Roman, who she actually made dream about Iris to help him remember. And this whole time I've kind of been wondering why Enva couldn't just handle Dacker herself. I couldn't remember. Now I remember. It all makes sense with the title now. We find out that she can't murder Dacker because the vows that she took when she married him prevent her from doing so. The Skyward Realm's vows, I guess, prevent them from hurting anyone they're married to, and the Underrealms don't, so Dacker can hurt her. And she has to hide from him, because if she is murdered by him, then he will get all of the power she has stolen and he will be like unstoppable. And so that's why she is hiding out away from him. And previously it was said that the mortal king knew that they were asleep. We find out that's not true. He thought that Enva was the only one left and bound her to Oath using a vow so that magic wouldn't leave Oath. And that's why she can't leave Oath. But this human king didn't realize that she couldn't kill Dacker. So Dacker was still sleeping there. And then we see these messages go out in the paper. We see a frenzy happen, people heading north, people heading south. We see this really great moment in the Gould Cafe where Iris and Addie's family take shelter, and we see all of these people that Dacker has just assumed will follow him, all kind of taking a stand, standing together, refusing to back down, and sheltering out together for better or for worse in this cafe. And I thought that was really powerful because we did see Roman talking earlier about how Dacker only cares to cater to the rich and powerful, completely excluding these normal everyday people that will take a stand against him. Unfortunately, Forrest doesn't shelter in this place with Iris because he went to get Prindle, who wanted to go get her dad, and then the bombing starts happening while they are going to get her dad. And I have to say, their relationship means a lot more to me this time around. Hearing how he sat alone in the dark after Iris went back to the front, and how Prindle visiting really kind of slowly helped draw him out of that, and how he has slowly started to become the Forrest that Iris knows again. It really just had more of an impact on me this time. I like him as a character in general more this time around. And then Addie and Iris head to the Underrealm to execute their plan. And as they're traveling, they hear this screaming, and they don't realize that it's Roman who is trapped under there. But Iris and Addie are able to behead Dacker with a little help from Enva, who uses her acquired power of illusions to make it seem like she's there and distract Dacker. And also, Iris mentions how Enva shows up as if she knew she is a faded thread in the tapestry of Dacker's demise. And now I'm wondering what happened to the matriarchs. Are they still around? Because they were the ones who were weaving the tapestry of fate. And I know it said all of the other gods were gone, but are they? I mean, they are goddesses technically, right? But are they something else? And she did know exactly who she should visit in dreams and exactly what she should show them. She did know exactly when to show up with this fight with Dacker. It was just something I had never really thought about the first time I read until I saw this tapestry in Wild Reverence, and now I'm curious, maybe that is the case. The last thing that I read is Shane does go back to the Underrealm and save Roman to kind of repay him for not telling Dacker that Shane has betrayed him. Roman and Shane make it back above, but the graveyard is rounding up all of Dacker's soldiers to put in front of a firing line now that Dacker has fallen. And Shane flees back down below, but Roman stays to help because he knows that a lot of these soldiers are not there by choice, just like he wasn't, just like Forrest wasn't. But Roman is captured, and Bruce runs to tell Iris, and Iris, obviously, she gets a letter that proves that Roman was not voluntarily a part of this and that he was helping save people this whole time. And so she runs to where this firing squad is and runs directly into the line of fire. The shots go off, and that was the last thing that I read. And obviously I know she's going to be okay, but I still worry about her. And I was really worried I would like this less the second time around because I know so many people don't love it. I like it even more than I did the first time. I feel like I've got more out of it. I'm really enjoying all of this symbolism with the birds from the bird book that Marisol gave Iris, which Dacker burned, and that makes me really sad. But we talk about these nightingales that were captured to be studied and how they broke their own wings trying to get out of this cage, refusing to be caged. And these albatross that fly right into storms, knowing that that's what they should do, just kind of instinctually. And I think that was a really interesting way to kind of tie in this bird book with some symbolism for this story. There's just been some extra little things I've noticed this time, like the tapestry. But I'm going to finish this book, and then I guess I will give my final thoughts. I've pretty much given them, but let's go finish this book. So in that last bit, we see the firing squad. The person pointed at Roman didn't fire because obviously Iris was directly in the line. And she was able to stop it and get the leader to read the letter that Roman wrote about Hawkshire. And then Keegan steps in to also kind of confirm that he is who he says he is, because they don't believe her, Iris. They don't believe Iris. And tells them, you know, these people all should have had a trial. A lot of these people were forced to fight for Dacker. So she convinces them that anyone who is still alive should be treated and taken prisoner and given a trial. And so Roman is taken to the hospital where he is treated. And there he finds out that his father has been sentenced to 70 years in prison, which is a lifetime for him, as well as his ex-fiance that he was arranged to marry and her father, who created this gas. This hospital is full of people who were affected by the gas. Some of them don't survive. Luckily, Roman does. And then we find out that Prindle and Forrest are gone, and that part is going to get me every time. Iris couldn't explain why it chilled her, why her dust-streaked hands, raw and scored with 100 scratches, began to quiver. But she ran to where the man was kneeling on a small hill of debris. She was careful as she knelt beside him, peering down at what he had found. It was Forrest and Sarah. Iris stared at them as if they were strangers, unable to fathom what she was seeing. Her brother, bruised, almost beyond recognition. He had shielded Sarah with his body, but it hadn't been enough. The heap of rubble had killed them both, hands entwined. They would never breathe again. They would never laugh and argue and grow old together. Iris was vaguely aware of the people around her holding her up, helping her stand. Helena and Addie and Tobias coming into focus. But in her mind, she was far away. She was broken by what could have been, but now would never be. And that is going to break my heart every single time. And then Roman is released from the hospital and goes home to find Iris. And then we get a time jump to, 3 months later. And Roman is moving all of her things out of her flat to the flat she's now renting with Roman. Going through all of her things, her mother's things, her brother's things. She finds a letter to her about how he's been meeting up with Prindle and how that's really been helping him and how proud he is of her, and that got me too. And then she goes to spread his ashes, and Tobias takes her to this beautiful place he knows. It's full of hills and valleys and sparkling creeks, and she realizes that it's the same place Enva had showed her in her dream, and I'm wondering why that is. I thought that was interesting. We never really find out why. I don't know, I'm guessing Enva knew about what was going to happen and maybe showed her that place. And we get another time jump to a year later, and Iris and Roman are in their new place. Iris is gardening. She is still working at the Anchorage Tribune, but Roman is chasing his dream of being an author. He is writing his book, and I'm so happy about that. And then Iris talks about how they're going to meet up with his grandmother and his mom, and then they're going to go watch Addie perform with Tobias. So everyone's kind of getting their dreams, and I love that, except for Forrest and Prindle. And then we see a little snippet of a POV of Enva, who apparently was in Gould's during the bombing with Iris and Addie and their family. And they didn't know it was her, because she just has learned to blend in so well. So she's the last Divine left. And so she's kind of wondering if she can use the Underrealm to travel again to leave Oath, since she hasn't been able to previously. And that's the last thing we see. And I'm so glad I reread this. I will definitely be doing more rereads of other books I love. Overall, once again, 5 stars, both of these, all 3 of them, favorites. I'm so glad to have seen these characters again, to have feel like I know them all a little bit better than I did before, to have found some new little bits in the story. I'm always going to be hoping that we're going to get more. We're going to get a Addie and Tobias novella or something. I kind of doubt it'll happen, but I'm always just going to hold out hope for it. And I've seen people who critique this book a lot talk about how it didn't feel like Iris and Roman were really the main characters, but I just don't agree with that. I mean, I do wish we had seen them together more, but I feel like the first book was Iris and Roman's book, kind of them finding each other. This one felt like Iris's story to me. Like, we see her robbing the museum to hopefully be able to talk to a Roman. We see her going to the Underrealm and beheading a god to save her home and the people she loves. She comes up with the plans to shelter in the magical building, saves all these people, defies Dacker, runs in front of this firing line to save Roman. Like, to me, this was Iris's story, and I really loved it. And it reminds me why I love her so much. She is so strong and brave and does not back down. And I feel like in the first book, we just don't fully get to see what she's capable of. But I do understand people wanting to see more of them together. I would have liked that as well. But that's going to be the end of this vlog. Let me know in the comments if you've read this series and what you think of it. I will leave my Instagram and my Goodreads in the description if you're interested. But I hope you all enjoyed. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all in the next one.